we go.
Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, January. I was hoping for June. January.
You're hoping.
I'm ready for Pride Month already. I'm done with winter. It's over for me.
That's
done.
Right.
We got that snow. Everybody enjoys winter. Tough luck. I'm ready to just fast forward about 5 months. But anyway, good morning. This is Coffee Pan Dulce. And how you doing, Christian?
I'm doing wonderful. You're right. We got some, those of us in Charlotte, North Carolina, we got some cold, some wintry weather finally. And so I love it. I'm excited. Of course, now everyone's like, all right, I'm ready for spring. But
I was done before that.
Oh, okay.
But this is
I love cold weather.
I will say so I moved here in the fall of 2018. This was the first measurable snow I've seen since I moved here.
Yeah, it depends on where you were.
When people said that Charlotte used to get snow, I'm like, I think you guys are exaggerating. Like you must have been up in the mountains or something. But
it depends. It depends on where you were. If you're like north of the line, you got snow, and those of us down here got ice and so forth. So anyway, well, welcome everyone. As Jenny said, to Coffee Pan Dulce. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts, along with Jenny Gunn, Mama Ruth, Barbara Bacon, who Barbara and Mama Ruth are not here today. Today is Wednesday, January the 19th. We're 3 weeks into January, I guess, or 3 Wednesdays.
Yeah.
No Wednesday left.
Third Wednesday.
Yeah, we want to thank everyone who's joining us on Facebook Live, but also those who join us on YouTube and on Facebook later on, who watch us later on. As we mentioned last time, we are taping this show the night before to kind of accommodate everyone, but it seems like the other two, it's not accommodating. So I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. I want to say that. So
I think we're getting the same attendance we had before. So
that's right. That's right.
If you've been a long-term fan of this show,
that's right.
You realize that it's been predominantly Christian and I, plus any guests that come on.
Yeah, that's right.
And with the occasional appearance of Barbara and Ruth.
That's all we need.
But I mean, pretty much, Christian and I are both big mouths, so we can.
That's right.
That's not even an issue.
Well, that's all we need. And last week's show, the topic was who was MLK, and we got about 1,700 viewers. But the reason I'm mentioning that was because the 3 before that, now we're up to 6,000 viewers. I don't know what people. And I'm looking at the matrix, the data on them, and I'm like, what did we do on those 3 shows that like you mentioned?
But a lot of times, a lot of our viewers, because there is so many viewing choices and podcasts and things like that, a lot of them will squeeze in later on down the road, a week or two down the road. And so we see our numbers from previous shows from like a couple of weeks ago grow over time.
Well, Reverend Dr. Sadler, who's on our show now, he was on one just about almost a month ago, and that one I think is at 4,500 now. And so it's the audio show, the last one of the year, and the Festivus show is almost up to 6,000. And so I'm like, okay, well, let's get started. As we mentioned, today's topic is we actually want to talk about a topic that Reverend Dr. Sadler mentioned the last time he was on our show, along with Melba Evans from Wedgwood Church. And he was talking about Reimagining America project. We want to kind of dig a little bit deeper into that. But before we do that, very quickly, in 30 seconds or less, because you know how we are, we want to talk about, let's go back. Salute to coffee, salute to your neighbors, and then we have to introduce everyone. Sorry. So let's go around the Brady Bunch screen. Introduce yourself in 30 seconds or less. It looks like it's Jenny, Reverend Dr. Sadler, and Tony Foreman. Go ahead, Jen.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jenny-Jaymes Gunn. My pronouns are she and they. I do a lot of advocacy work and programming work with Charlotte Pride, our local Pride organization, the LGBT DIMS, and the National Organization for Women. I'm actually a board member at large with them. I was the first trans woman in their almost 50-year history to be elected to their board. And in just general advocacy, and then I do these 2 shows. Tony?
Greetings, everybody. The one and only Tony Forman here, one of the founding members of the show.
That's true.
I'm elated to be here today. Actually, I was glad to hear from Cano. But I've been in Charlotte, via New York City, since 2016. Since then, I've met a lot of good people. Some I still yet to meet, but I'm part of several organizations. I was the CRC, Action and C, Enlace, 704 Forward, and it's all about community work. You know, somebody's got to do it, and the commitment comes straight from the heart.
Excellent. Reverend Sadler.
Good evening, Rodney Sadler. I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a professor at Union Presbyterian Seminary at here in Charlotte, and I want to talk a little bit about the Reimagining America project tonight. So excited to be with you.
Excellent. Thank you. And I'm Christian Cano once again. My buttons are not imaginary. They're actually on the jacket I wear for this show. Healthcare for all, Medicare for all, Moms of an Action, gun sense legislation, and in my heart, Black Lives Matter. After Joe Oldham, who was a guest of ours quite often, he passed away last year. So with that said, very quickly, let's talk about three current events. The Senate, as we speak, they're debating ending the filibuster or changing the filibuster. I think Elizabeth Warren is actually on now. I'm watching it on this screen right here. Also, there are today, I believe it started today, you can go to covidtests.gov and order your free home test. You put your information in there and you get a packet of 4 home tests. That came out today. And then we were going to talk about Trump, but I won't skip him. I don't know if anybody wants to comment. It looks like a couple of Republican, like Ted Cruz and Mark Rubio and Marjorie Taylor Greene and even some other ones, they used Martin Luther King's holiday to quote Martin Luther King, and especially Marjorie Taylor Greene used it to say how white people are being discriminated against and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know if you want to comment on any of that. So 30 seconds or less, who wants to comment?
I'll go first because I usually fire off.
Yeah.
I want a pound of whatever MTG smokes because it must be incredible. It creates these amazing hallucinations.
Yeah.
I think any white conservative or white moderate that quotes Dr. King should be banned from all social media because, quite frankly, it's ridiculous. In fact, he spoke to the Senate, and they've showed several audio clips of it this week honoring Dr. King. And he talked about the biggest threat to civil rights really is the white moderate. And I agree. I think the white enablers and the white moderate / moderates are the biggest threat to the United States. Look at Manchin and Cinema. I mean, they're stooges.
Okay.
As far as the
COVID test or
being held out,
debate.
I think that's great. I think it's it's a many layered steps to try to wrangle COVID the best we can. It's out there. And then what was the last one?
Senate debates.
Oh, Senate debates. Yeah, this should have happened last year. This should have been on the agenda last summer. Should have been tied to some of the spending bills. We got to remember, in the 4 years that the other guy was here, we suspended this filibuster 4 times that I know of. One to pass the $2 trillion giveaway to billionaires and billionaires that did not need the money. And the 3 times that he jammed Supreme Court justice nominations through on a straight line vote. So Republicans just recently suspended the filibuster 4 times when it suited their agenda. But now they think that it doesn't suit their agenda, protecting voting rights. It's very, very, very shameful. It's disgusting.
Okay. Tony or Reverend Dr. Sadler, do any of you want to comment on those or pass them?
I ordered my test. I seen it and right away I ordered it. I think it's something good to have in the house when you you know what I'm saying? You never know. There's still a lot of meetings going on Zoom and stuff like that, but some still being held in person. And no matter where you go, I mean, you're risking catching the virus. And I just want to, I've been vaccinated, boosted, and I had about boosters or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Any comment about the Senate debate?
well, I really I don't understand how the voting rights bill was voted bipartisan 90%, and all of a sudden we at a standstill, and they're still saying that there's nothing wrong with voting the way that it is and this and that. I mean, who they think they're fooling? You know what I'm saying? And why don't we have a voting rights act? I mean, let's be for real. You know, obviously it's only meant for a group of people.
Mhm.
I wanted to also, I seen Reverend Martin Luther King's granddaughter, 13 years old, make a speech, and she was asking pretty much to what Jenny was talking about, that, you know, if you're going to be, I don't want to make this seem like it's racial, but if you're right and you're a legislator and you want to Martin Luther King, don't call him legislator.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And Reverend Dr. Sadler, do you want to comment on any of those?
I would love to wrestle with this larger issue of voting rights. I think voting rights are one of the most significant concerns that we have to deal with. And it should be one of these things that's a no-brainer, that everyone should get behind it. Everyone should try to ensure that in America, everyone should be able to vote. And there should be no impediment. There should be no way that we stop it. And it seems odd to me that there are parties, there are people in this nation that would find any reason whatsoever not to stand behind it. Now, when we think about ensuring that people's rights are enshrined, who would not want to be 100% behind it? Who would not want to be getting ahead of the curve and saying, I'm going to do everything I can to protect it? So for me, it is an issue that seems to be at its fundamental core undemocratic. How can you not stand for it? And I don't mean democratic with a small d. I mean democratic with a big D. I mean democratic with a small d. Who would not want to stand behind something that enshrines people's rights? So I'm at a loss right now. I don't understand how it is that anyone could stand against such a significant concern.
Excellent. I'm on the same page as everyone else. The COVID test. I mean, we ordered it at this house so we can have those in hand. We've had no issue getting testing. Jenny knows I probably had maybe an average of one test every 2 weeks since testing started, because if I go to a sports bar or before, I get tested. I want to make sure, because I caught COVID when I went to a campaign for the Senate election in Atlanta and Georgia last year. And so I just want to make sure I'm protecting myself from other people. But we did it, but I sent all that link to my family so they can order it. The Senate debate, I'm very similar to everyone else, but I'm not upset at Republicans. I'm upset at the two Democrats that are holding it up. That's where, and I'm just like, ugh. I'm hoping maybe Burr, because he has nothing to lose, he's not running again. Maybe someone else who's not running on the Republican side will see what we're talking about. It just seems like no brainer. Let's just let as many people as we can vote, and whoever wins, wins. And so that's kind of where I am. But before we talk about Reimagine America, I completely forgot to talk about, this is very important, Manolo's Bakery on Central Avenue here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Please visit Manolo's Bakery if you are in Charlotte, North Carolina, or visit any small Black and brown small business where you live and support them during this global pandemic. So with that said, did I do everything, Jenny? I think I saluted. I
think we're pretty good. One thing I wanted to point out about voting rights is just as recently as 2006, under President George W. Bush, a Republican, the Senate voted 98-0 to uphold and renew voting rights and civil rights. That was just 2006. It's not like it was 1906 or anything like that, but actually 2006, inside this century, in 98-0, nobody in the Senate voted against voting rights. And the Senate has always been thought of as the most renowned standard of democracy, the powers to be of the two houses. And now it's turned into something that looks more like the WWE. I fully expect someday to somebody smash a chair over Ted Cruz's head or something like that. It's just
We can
a
only
bizarre,
wish.
like Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz get into it or something. It's just turned into a circus. And no, I'm mad at the Republicans too. They have there's 50 of them, and they have an obligation, because the tides of democracy flow in and out, they ebb and flow. And protecting democracy behooves the Republicans. Republicans in most Republican-held counties that are dominantly Republican, they're typically poor. They're typically on the lower edge. The 100 poorest counties in the United States are all Republican. They're all voted for Trump in 2016 and in 2020. So they're the ones that are going to have a struggle to get IDs, to be able to come up with the things, to be able to take off work. But, many of those people are going to be rural America. They're not going to be like taking a day off to work to go to vote. Maybe that polling center in rural America is 15, 20 miles away from where they live. And so typically speaking, voting right, holding and making voting easier helps Republicans. Let's look at Virginia, for example.
Well, I think
where they had a landslide victory, and because Virginia loosened up their voting rules and made it more accessible in 2018. And look at what happened. So I don't understand how they don't understand how important this is for all parties, everybody.
But don't you think, Jenny, this leads exactly into what we're going to be talking about? Maybe Reverend Dr. Sadler can kind of speak to this. And
definitely.
Because don't you think we need to I'm just going to the name, Reimagine America Project. Don't you think we need to reimagine America? Because today, really, it almost seems like voting rights is code word for giving Black people something. That's what it seems like.
People of color.
Voter ID, check IDs. It's like code for, in certain areas, certain things means white and certain things mean Black. And so these words mean, and as a Latinx person who grew up white, because on the birth certificate, it's white, but my ethnicity is Latino, I've always been it just depends on where you live, on where you're considered. And here, and so it just seems like those are code for that. So with that said, I'd love to reimagine America where I don't know if it's ever possible, but let's talk to Reverend Dr. Sadler. Tell us about Reimagining America Project. Is that what we're talking about, or am I dreaming?
Let me apologize initially. I've got a bit of a family crisis
I'm sorry.
Someone just tested positive for COVID, and I've got to go and get them.
Okay, I understand.
So I might have to leave
for
a couple of minutes, but let me say the Reimagining America Project is a truth and reconciliation process that really is trying to dig down deep on the issues of race and racial disparity in America. The fundamental purpose of this is to say that you cannot have a system that says all human beings, we hold this truth to be self-evident, that every human being is created equal, that they're endowed with their creator with certain unalienable rights, and at the same time say we have a system that believes that people are of different races. Because when you say that people are different races, the fundamental thing that you're saying is that they're somehow or another fundamentally different, that they are different in appearance, and that difference in appearance should translate in some way to differences in value, so that they are entitled to different access to wealth, power, and privilege. This is fundamentally problematic. There's no way to have racial equity because the concept of race itself has within its very being the notion of inherent inequality. That's like that same concept. There's no such thing as separate and equal. Brown versus the Board of Education. Well, the same thing. There can be no such thing as race and equality. You have to get rid of the concept of race, which scientists, geneticists, biologists have already determined it's a fictive concept. It literally makes no sense. There's no such thing as different races. Human beings have not existed long enough to justify subspecies variation. So the concept of race is fundamentally false. It is only a social construct. And a social construct, like anything else that is a fictive notion, only gains power when we give it power, when we believe that it has some truth. So we fundamentally, the idea of the Reimagining America project is to say, we recognize that this is a fictive construct. We recognize that this fictive construct both supports a falsity that should not exist and perpetuates inequalities, actual inequalities among people. We've got to do something about it. We've got to eliminate the way that race has worked to shape people's futures the way that it does. And we have to find a different way of dealing with the differences that we see. Now, this is not in any way to say we don't want people to celebrate the Latinx heritage. This is not in any way to say we don't want people to celebrate the fact that you are a Black person from Louisiana. We just want to make sure that we don't use the color of your skin to determine what access to wealth, power, and privilege you have, determine where you can and cannot live, determine where you can and cannot go to school, determine how the doctors will view you when you go there. We've got to find a way to move beyond the way that race has shaped people's outcomes in life. And it's inherent. I mean, I think so many people, I hear these conversations all today. I just made a commitment to teach a class today that talks about, is race really a thing? Is it still an issue? Didn't we solve race? And there's so many people today, particularly those who imagine themselves to be white, who literally think that race is, we did away with. We elected Obama. Everything's done now. It's all good. It's all good. Let's just move on. No, it's not true in the slightest. We still have to deal with the fact that we treat people differently. Apparently, electing Obama did not stop Trayvon Martin, did not stop George Floyd, did not stop Eric Garner from being killed by the police. It didn't change those dynamics. Those racial dynamics still persist in our society. And I should shut up so Anthony can jump in.
Well, thank you, Reverend Dr. Sadler. I know you mentioned that you have to go, and please take care of your family, and our thoughts are with you as well. And Brother Tony, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I just want to come in. Cano, you know me since I got here. Rev, I've followed you for a while. You don't know me and I don't know you, but I know of you. Jenny, back to you. What year was that they voted 98?
2006.
2006, pre-Obama. Okay, now let's be clear about something. Reverend, you alluded to, speaking of the topic of race and what reimagining America. We got to be clear about something. Some of us are scared to say what I'm about to say, and I'm not scared. This is about white supremacy. But when you look at what I came here in 1965 from the Dominican Republic. I didn't know nothing about, Dominican Republic. They don't go about your color and this and that. They go by the amount of money that you have. It's about class. So it was a culture shock to me. But as I look forward and I see what's going on, working for a congressman for 10 years in New York, there's a closer community among race than what I find here. In the rest of the world, we have problems, but you got to remember where the problems are coming from. You could come into, a white person could come into a Black community and be embraced and everything. And, I've been chased in New York from white communities. So race is a very touchy topic. But we've got to understand who it is that we have to convince that in order to bring about equality, we're not afraid to embrace other people. And that's a fact. Historically, we're not afraid to embrace other people. The fact that these voting rights the census said that by 2030, 2050, the people of color would be the majority. That's a scary thought for some people.
Actually, it's closer than that. By 2026,
Yeah,
we will have a very large percentage. Okay, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. But
it's killing a lot of people where they really don't have to be scared. We're the ones that are scared. And
Yeah.
we're going to talk about race and equality. We have to be candid. We have to really talk about the root issue
yeah,
and create the topic of race.
that's a good point.
And I've got a question for Dr. Sadler, since he's still on. The Reimagining America project, is it more of an academic project? Is it being done by academics? Is it government officials? Because I know that you're a professor. I mean, first and foremost, we have to understand that you're a professor of theology, I believe. And so is it like pastors? Is it like who's the contingent that is pushing this idea forward? And what is the ultimate goal or lane that the project is going towards to accomplish the idea of almost
Sure.
Thank you. That's a wonderful question. And I'm going to take this question and then I'm going to sneak out.
Yes.
Thank you for doing this. So the Reimagining America project, when we first conceived of this originally, we called it the Truth, Reconciliation, Anti-Poverty Commission. We were working together. It was a group of us as ministers that began to work with some people from Alicia Keys' campaign. And we were trying to find a way to make this a national effort immediately. We actually went to the Obama White House. We sold the idea to them. We began to work with them to develop something on a national level. Because we did this in 2015, it was near the end of their tenure. They wanted us to move it forward with whoever came in after them. We thought that would be the Clintons. So I sort of had some initial conversations with both Hillary and Bill Clinton. And we began to talk about the idea with them, hoping to be able to move that forward. Unfortunately, we saw what happened in November 2016. So we sort of brought it back to Charlotte. We tried to do something with it here. We started something called the Commission on Race and Racial Equity that began from the Charlotte Clergy Coalition for Justice. It began to be spread out, but there was some infighting about whether or not we needed government sanction to do it, whether we needed some other things. Eventually, Rabbi Judy Schindler sort of took it and did some work with it in a different capacity. It eventually morphed into Restorative Justice Charlotte, and they did some good work, but they were primarily focused on dealing with issues of restorative justice, making sure that we are able to compensate people for what took place in Brooklyn. So we, in the aftermath of George Floyd uprising, I met with Mayor Jennifer Roberts on the streets one night as things were going crazy, and we said, we got to do something different. We got to find a different way forward. So we brought back the idea from Truth, the track program, Truth, Reconciliation, and Anti-Poverty Commission. We said, let's begin to focus on this again, and let's do this work again. Our fundamental issue is not just to deal with racism, but to deal with the concept of race itself, which, as Ta-Nehisi quotes, race itself is a racist idea. Kwame Anthony Appiah, when he talks about the concept of racism, he says, in order to have racism, it's necessary to have race. Race has to exist in order to have racist policies. So the fundamental thing that we just said, we're going to work on the concept of race. How do we begin to both identify that it continues to be a problem, that it is not real, and that we have the power to change that. Once we begin to do that, we can begin to think about what would the system look like if it were more just. And that's what the reimagining part has to do with.
Reverend Dr. Sadler, I know you have to go,
yes,
but I guess the obvious question that I have, and I know you got to go, you probably can maybe have you on whenever you have a chance again.
Yes.
The only way it seems like to fix this is to take race out of the government's, the applications. I mean, right. I mean, because as long as I have race on my birth certificate that someone has to check, it will always be there. And so it seems like the only way to take that out would be to take that race question or whatever out. So is that
really the problem, Christian? I mean,
I don't know. I'm just
more a matter of heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's more of a matter of heart.
Yes.
Because I was an athlete for a long time, and you would lose more ball games, especially in team sports, over heart than talent.
Mhm.
And many of the people I went up against were more talented than me, but I had more heart.
Sure.
And it's why I won many of the battles that I went in
Sure.
sport and made me an elite athlete. And I
Okay.
truly believe that I see where the project is going by your explanation, that you're
Yeah.
doing a grassroots campaign to change the hearts and minds of people, to open people's mind up and say, hey, this is really just an imagined construct. Just like I always say that there's really no such thing as gender. A gender assignment, based on your plumbing is ridiculous. Is that you are what you identify to be, and that's a personal identity, and we can celebrate that. But at the same time, that shouldn't decide where I live, where I go to school, if I want to pray, if I don't want to pray, so on and so forth. Is that my human rights and my civil rights should not be contingent on how I identify.
Exactly.
No, I
Putting-
understand.
Or how you are identified in the larger community, how
Correct.
you are identified on the outside. And that's sort of the way that race works. I see what you
Okay.
look like on the outside. I know who you are. This is what you're entitled to. This is the way that we'll treat you. This is
Okay.
and this is what we need to begin to work against. And I think that it has a little bit to do with what you talked about, Christian, i.e. changing the forms and census reports and things. But it has a whole lot more to do with changing people's hearts and minds, and then looking at the way that policies have developed racist impact without having a racialized intent. So there's maybe no race in the way that Social Security was put out. There may be no race in the way that the GI Bill was conceived of, but the way that it functions has had significant impact that has been quite clearly racialized. So it's a much more comprehensive, ideological, head, heart, and then it's not just head and heart, but the final impact we want to have is on policy. How do we change policy to change the society? How do we make it such that we don't have these conversations about voting because we're not trying to disenfranchise people based upon the color of their skin anymore? I think that's where we're trying to ultimately get to. So
and I know you got to go. Thank you so much, Reverend Sadler. Whenever you want to come back and talk about this, please, we're here for you. And Tony, let's go ahead and let you chime in, and we'll talk about voting rights. Go ahead.
I just want to
you're muted, Tony.
Real quick. See, I like what you said, Cano, because it goes to picture. What do I mean?
Yeah.
It's all psychological, and it's for when you're going to put an application on a birth certificate and you're going to give someone an identity, so like by your genitals, you're automatically placing in somebody's mind with relationship. You go to a relationship with an open mind. That's what I was saying. So you let the other person, how would you say, corrupted? When you look at the Bible, when you read the Bible doesn't say that Jesus is white. It doesn't say that Jesus is black, but it does say that he is a certain that he's a certain how would you
skin tone or skin color? Okay.
And his hair is woolly. Now, some people would say that that means that he was black. Now, we don't know who Jesus was. Did you see him? Because I haven't seen him.
Hey, if you'd watched our show 3 weeks ago, Brown Jesus.
That was the last show that we had Dr. Sadler on.
Exactly. Sorry, Tony, I didn't mean. Go ahead, Tony.
It's a psychological construct that has caused humanity to become divided. And it's not something that we're going to break. Going to solve anytime soon.
Well, Tony, the only reason I said that, and I mentioned that, and let's let Jenny jump in real quickly, because and we want to keep talking as we can, but the reason I said that was because the only way that we were able, or one of the ways we were able to fix sexual sex biasness and sex discrimination in the employment world was you could not have race on the application anymore. And that was and you could not have the person's sex on the application anymore. And a lot of us, what we did was we would have to go through a third party. Now, and then what we did was you could fill out the race part if you wanted to. It was optional, but we told everyone, don't do it because it's used against you. The companies would say we're tracking it, but that's not really, I guarantee you, someone who's had all these applications in front of you, I can understand if you don't have the heart like Jenny is talking about, and you're looking for someone to fill a certain position, and you've got in your mind the type of person, and if there was a white female on that application, you're going to put those across, and you're going to put other people's across. So I really admire the fact when Commissioner Jarrell was on here, maybe a year ago, he was talking about how there's now employers are going to, they don't even want to put the name of the person on there. They want to put the first initial and the last name because people are discriminated against their name. If your name is Shaniqua, or if your name is an African name, there are people, or if your name is Fernando, you know, my first name, which is why I use Christian on all of my resumes, you know. And so there are people that would discriminate against you because of your name. And so, you know, so that's what I was talking about, Jenny, about race, because there was a scene in the show about Capote. And there was a scene where he goes to visit the guy who did the murders, Truman Capote, and he goes to visit the guy in prison, and he's talking to the warden, and the warden says, "You should be lucky. I marked him as white, not Indian." And that scene really resonated with me when I saw that. That's what, 10, 15 years ago? Because I was very fortunate, I guess, in a way that I grew up and Hispanic Americans or Mexicans or whatever you call it, we are considered white on race. There wasn't a white and then Hispanic. It was just white only. If I had been Hispanic or Latino, I'd have a completely different life. I truly believe that, because on my and so anyway, that's what I was kind of pointing to. So Jenny, go ahead, because I know you want to jump in.
Well, a couple things. For one, you see this with small children, you know, especially before, like, you know, puberty and that sort of thing. You see the complete acceptance of each other, regardless of, you know, race, anything for the most part,
Yeah.
especially when you're talking about young children, 10 and down. And, you know, it's somewhere along the way, a certain percentage of, especially the white kids, get corrupted by a white supremacy, racism, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
But they probably hear that from their parents or family members or society itself, because they hear it from somewhere. It's not natural for human beings to hate each other. Hate is taught. Hate is something that is generated based on insecurities and projection. And you know, if you meet a hateful person, odds are they're a very insecure person. They're compensating for something, you know. And we won't go down that psychological rabbit hole to explain the dynamic. I mean, but needless to say, being an openly genderqueer person living in the South, I run into a lot of hate, a hyper amount of it, passive aggressive and aggressive, you know, in person, over the internet, whatever. But I also come to realize that sometimes you don't fight hate with hate. You don't, it's not effective. And I do believe, you know, of course, we do need to codify and adjust our laws to make sure that we all have a seat at the equity table and the equality table. But I also believe too that we sorely lack the openness and discussions when people are young, so that we don't, you know, solidify these deep divides of hate-based education that comes from teachers, coaches, parents, older spheres of influence. I do believe it's more of a matter of heart rather than code. I think the code needs to happen to institutionalize it, removing bias or implicit bias out of the deal. I believe in what Mark Jarrell's doing as far as restorative justice, which is adjust every process that the county's doing to make sure we don't have racism or sexism or misogyny or anti-queerness or anything codified. Like, we want to make sure all that's pulled out, because that's a baseline. But where the work is truly done, and we saw this with our community, Christian, when Americans started embracing the LGBT community in the late 90s and early 2000s, when Ellen came out and all these famous people came out, and America started seeing it, the
Will and Grace.
The Will and Grace, and they started seeing us less as a group of dirty people that all have HIV. They started to see us as humans because of some endearing fictional characters and some real life gay people that also played fictional characters. I believe that you started seeing pride events being mainstreamed and all that. And I believe that our community needs better communication skills, and also not enabling hateful dialogue. And I think we have to really look at the processes of what, freedom is, what freedom of speech is. You're seeing it now with some of, like Twitter, like they're eliminating disinformation campaigns, they're eliminating hate speech, they're anything that's inflammatory. And I think we have to have this dialogue. When it's hate speech, that's not free speech. We can't say that we're a free country while we have one group of people that's flaming the fans of hate. And you can't have that. You can't have but
Jenny, don't you,
that are tyrants and that hate people.
Jenny, don't you, and you and I talk about this all the time. I mean, this topic, you and I, in one way or another, it's all based upon a group of individuals that know their days are numbered, and they're going to do everything they can to hold on, knowing it is scientifically and mathematically impossible for them to remain the way they have for the last 400 years. Those days are finally, the possibility is changing, and those individuals are not going to give up. They would, and my argument has been, and this is where I hope Reverend Sadler's Reimagining American Project and some of the other things that people are talking about, we have to do we have two options. Those of us who are going to end up on the majority side, we have two options. We can either treat them like they did us, which there's, believe me, I'd like nothing better to do that. Or we can say, listen, it's going to be just as uncomfortable for us if we treat you like us, because we're going to be fighting you the same way you fought us. So we have to somehow convince them. And I don't know, that's to me the big challenge.
I want to address that real quick.
Okay.
So I was living in Missouri when Obama got elected. And I lived in Southwest Missouri in a tourism city called Branson, Missouri. And the county that I lived in was 97% white. And very hyper right-wing Christian environment. Insanely racist, homophobic, every type of bigot you could find lives in that county. It's a potpourri of hate. And I can just tell you from being among them and hearing the conversations, especially when you're in heavily white conservative silos, and oh my gosh, the gnashing of teeth, and this is the beginning of the end. We have and they didn't say black, they said the N-word. But he was going to take our guns and take away.
The end of days are coming.
That he was going to burn the flag, and he was going to have the Muslims take over. And just we're going to become we're going to just like end of days. And of course,
it didn't happen.
Obama's policies weren't really that much different than George W. Bush's policies. I mean, truthfully, a lot of his military policies actually just extended George W. Bush's bills, and he kept many of George W. Bush's staffers on the military industrial side of it. In fact, I thought that was Obama's biggest failure, was the way he operated, the war. But the biggest thing is the proof of concept that they think when the others take over, that we're going to do to them what they did to us, didn't happen. We went 8 years with Obama. There was no death lists, with Obamacare. There was no rounding up of white people. There was nobody came to their door and grabbed their guns or grabbed the rebel flag or anything. Nothing changed in that regard. And I think for whatever reason, there's this fear, because we all know, as a white person, I know that when I become the part of the largest minority in America instead of the largest, the majority, because it's just pure math. Yeah, it ain't going to be a difference. Like the day that happens, when that 51 percentile flips the other way, you know what? I'm still going to get up. I'm going to brush my teeth. I'm going to take a shower, and I'm going to go to work, just like I did the day before when I was the majority. For me, nothing's going to change because I'm not scared.
Well, that's kind of what I was. Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about. Thank you for saying that about I agree with you exactly what you're talking about. Let's get Tony to jump in. That's kind of what I was talking about. So when I'm watching these debates and they're trying to, they're debating on the Voting Rights Act and the filibuster and all, and saying we only got about 13 minutes left, so maybe we can switch to this real quickly. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking the strategy they're using is trying to convince, Manchin and the other lady, whatever her name is, the other lady, the lady from Arizona, sorry, as a Freudian slip, Lady Manchin and the other lady. The strategy they're using is they should just forget them and just say, you know what, I'm forgetting you. And let's try to go after some of the hearts and minds of some of the Republicans who may come to, I think Romney is, I thought he was cuckoo when he ran for office, but he's turning out to be, compared to the rest of them. And Burr is probably very moderate, but because of the situation he's in, and I don't know if he wants to run for something, I don't know what that situation is. I think he can be moderate. So maybe they should go after them. Tony, you want to say something?
You have a point there, because I heard this morning, and I've heard it in at least 2 different networks, that there is a group of Republicans that are anti-Trump. They're working on coming up with something to be, because they don't like the direction that the party has gone. We're at a crossroads now, guys, that, listen, those of us that think rationally, those of us that have love in our heart, those of us that don't mind. Cano, when I first met you, we fell in love. That was a love affair.
Yeah.
Daddy, I love you too. That's just, when people have a pure heart, you don't see color, you don't see race, you don't see culture. Man, listen, I don't care where you come from. I respect you, you respect me, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there is a yin and there's a yang, there's a plus and there's a positive, a negative and there's a positive. You know what I'm saying? There's a North Pole, there's a South Pole. So there's always going to be an opposite, a negative and a positive. And how do we change that? I don't think we have the formula for that yet. I think that those of us, what we do, have to just continue doing it and talking about it. And I'll leave y'all with this. I think that one of the biggest problems that we have, and I think you guys would agree, is that we are actually afraid to really have a real candid conversation about race. And
Yeah.
we're afraid to really have that. You just are. He's not here, but and I don't like to talk while people are not here, but while he was talking, I sensed that there were certain things that he didn't want to directly say, that it was like it directly, and I don't speak that way, Cano. You know me.
Yeah, I know. So, well, I understand what you're saying, because when he mentioned Jennifer Roberts and some of the other individuals involved, I know that they are very non-confrontational individuals. Not that that's, and I said that not to make it like it's a bad thing, but I know they're diplomatic. She was a diplomat, and the mayor, former mayor of our city. So I know that they want to approach it in a way, but I also know, living in Charlotte, that they've been doing that for 60 years, and they don't get anything done in this city. Everybody talks about race relations and they get nothing done because they don't have the honest conversations about race. They're afraid to hurt someone's feelings. They're afraid to do, whatever. And so that's what it seems like. Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Real quickly, Tony, then we got Jenny jump in real quickly.
I want to just thank you guys for having me. And Cano, I know I've been away for a while, but I've been making some pop.
Okay.
On the North Carolina Latino Music and Culture. So you more about that. You get that one?
Yeah. I didn't. Okay.
North Carolina Latino Museum of History and Culture.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm doing the 501c3 now.
Okay.
You in on it. I would love for you to be a part of it.
Okay. We'll do a show about it if you, okay.
Us Afro-Latinos, we got to speak together, brother.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So real quickly, Tony, and then Jenny, you want to say something? You want to jump in?
Well, I think in many cases, I know where Dr. Sadler and Jennifer Roberts are coming from a fact that in some spaces for them to get in the door, you sometimes have to diplomatically get in before you can have these conversations. And then once you're ensconced, then you can get more aggressive. And that's kind of how I operate some of my advocacy is that I get in with organizations and then I become more aggressive after I'm in the organization for a while and I've earned a certain amount of trust and be able to have the discussions to help shape that organization. I think sometimes when you come in guns a-blazing on the first part before you earn trust, because trust is always earned. It's just one of those things and it can be lost very easily. So I do see what the value of some of their rhetoric and all that. I do think there is a time when the rhetoric has to change to action. And I think I think that's where a Mark Terrell comes in, for example, that is doing the restorative justice projects along with many others there in the county government, is that and like we did last year with passing the non-discrimination ordinance, both on the county and the city level, those were action plans that came from rhetoric that actually turned into positive changes for many communities here in Charlotte. And so I think change is possible. I don't think it always has to be an undying conversation, just endless conversation. I do believe that at some point, and that's why I asked Dr. Sadler, what is the ultimate end game? What is the goal in mind? And that can be a moving goal. Once you've accomplished one thing, you can move. But I do believe that there has to be some sort of goal, whether it is creating more educational opportunities for younger Americans, whether it is creating a more honest conversation or creating a town hall environment or whatever it is to create an environment to have these conversations. But I think the more people that are included in it, the more people that have access to it, and the more transparency there is, the more they'll accomplish. Because I think, I always, anytime I see a movement, I always think back to the LGBT movement and how far we've come and how much has changed for us in the last 50 years. And it really came a lot faster than I think people believe, marriage equality, that sort of thing. But it came with hard conversations. I mean, dealing with homophobia and transphobia in especially the rural South or states that maybe don't have the most tolerance or open minds, which I've lived in 3 of them that are in the last 3 places I lived in Missouri, Texas, and now North Carolina. And none of them are the beacons of tolerance and hope, and so you have to have tough conversations. You have to have tough conversations, whether it's a one-on-one or a mass audience. And some things are tough to
Those are some very good points, and we only have about 5 minutes left. So I do want to start to kind of wrap this up. But listen, it's been great to have you back on here, Tony. I know Tony is one of the original Tony.
Yep.
I think the very first episode, one of the first 2 episodes, either Tony, myself, and Jeff Scott and Mama Ruth. I remember those days when we sat around here and ate. At that time, we actually had a person who made homemade pan dulce. And so before Manolo came on, so yeah, that's right. Yeah. So listen, we're gonna wrap up here since we do have value everyone's time, and hopefully we can get Reverend Dr. Sadler back on sometime in February or March to talk further about Reimagining project, and maybe we can get former Mayor Jennifer Roberts on to talk. I think it's a great project. I have a lot of questions, and I think everyone else does as well. But in 30 seconds, let's tell us where you're going to be. Or before we do that, anything else you want to say, Jenny, about the voting rights or this?
I think we'll probably say more on 2 queers, and and I've got some pretty good little segments set up for that. But yeah, I mean, I as far as where I'm going to be, I'm not doing much just because of the surge of Omicron. I've stayed since about December 22nd. I've pretty much stayed homebound or workbound. I've limited my exposure just because, honestly, just don't want to catch COVID. It's I'm triple vaxxed and all that, but still, I'm doing a lot of virtual stuff. There is, I think, the next live thing I'm doing is there's a Stonewall event on Sunday, and then next week there's the LGBT Chamber event. I believe it's next Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it's Tuesday. So I'm probably going to go to that. They're pretty strict on their standards, and I believe it's kind of an indoor-outdoor space. But other than that, I'll also be here on 2 Queers in about 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
That's right. Excellent.
Stay tuned.
And Tony, where are you going to be, or tell us what you need to tell us in 30 seconds or so?
Me, I'm going to be working, Cano. I work for this organization called Promise Resource Network, PRN. And what we do is we disseminate information to people that have been affected by COVID. It's a company called KeyPro that you call a number and they connect you to resources. So I'm pretty much engaged in that, but I'm going to be meeting with my people for the museum.
Okay. Excellent.
The Museum of the South or something like that.
Yeah, the Levine Museum of the South. Yep, I think they're moving actually, or they're doing something. Yeah.
I don't know if that's the name of it, but one of those museums.
Yeah.
I forget exactly.
Okay.
We're about to close it down, and we're trying to. I'm going to be speaking with the president.
Okay. Well, excellent. Well, when you have information, please come on. We'd love to talk about that. And I will be here. Unfortunately, my professional football team did not win this weekend, so we're out. So there's nothing else to watch.
I know.
For every
episodes of Coffee and Pan Dulce.
That's right. That's right. So, anyone who is a NFL football fan knows once your team loses, it is pretty quiet between now and March Madness. So this is when everyone gets really depressed. It's not because of winter. It's because of, what do you do? Until March Madness starts. All right. So with that said, I do want to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you for those who watch us on Facebook, but also on YouTube. And please keep watching us. Please keep sharing us. Next week, a very important topic, our last show of the month. Modern day white supremacists, what do they look like? And how to eat a tamale. Only on Coffee and Pan Dulce. How's that, Jen? What's your line? Sunday.
We have guns that look like knives, knives that look like guns. Buy one, get one free. We're basically the group line of TV shows right here, so it's pretty great.
So it's a buy one, get BOFO. Is that what BOFO? BOFO? Buy one.
Something like that, yeah.
BOGO, buy one,
BOGO,
get one.
BOGO.
Yeah, it's a BOGO. It's a BOGO show. BOGO show.
Just buy one, get one right there.
Two topics. We'll talk about modern day white supremacists. And also, please stay tuned because about 15 minutes after this show on Wednesday, We will do another episode of Two Queers in a Truck, and Jenny has got them streamlined so we don't ramble on forever. So thank you, Jenny. If you want to watch us, if you want to watch us, we're all gloves are off. We just talk about things more freely. Maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't know what topics. So Tony, you want to say something?
Another show?
Yes, if you want to join us, we'd love to. I'll let Jenny do. Let's end this show first. All right,
Yep,
we'll
let's
end
wrap
this show
it up.
first, and we will end on a little music. I was going away because I want to make sure this is right. How's that? Bye, y'all.